Thank you, Bill, for joining. Pleasure to have you. I think this is my first podcast with you. We have been in contact for, I think, few years. Well, on LinkedIn, we have been in contact for long, but
Long time.
yeah, but really in contact, I think 2, 3 years we have been in contact, and now I have the pleasure to have a podcast with you on your new venture, right?
Well,
So
thank you, Mustafa. It's a pleasure to be here.
thank you so much. So I think you have started your new venture, Data Walks. We can see right behind you, and one of the new, I think, revolutionary tool which you have brought in, Textual ETL. I think this is what we are going to discuss today. So I will open the floor for you. I'm sure 99.99% people in the world knows you, in the data world knows you, but still I would like to take this opportunity to share about yourself, and then we can start our topic.
Surely. My name's Bill Inman. I live in Denver, Colorado. I've been in information technology for many, many years. My first program was written in 1963, and I've been a programmer, a database designer, and I was fortunate enough to start something called Data Warehouse many years ago. And in data warehousing, one day, I ask myself the question, why don't data warehouses and management include text in their decision-making decisions? And that's an interesting question because the vast majority of the information that goes through a corporation is in the form of text, and yet corporations don't pay any attention to it. So what I did was I started a new technology called Textual ETL, or another word for it is textual disambiguation.
Okay, so this is huge for me, right, because we know you like few decades now. I was just talking, just to share with you, right. I was just talking to my wife that
Hmm.
20 years back when I started my career in 2002. Actually, I started from database itself, and in 2003, Oracle came up with their own OWB tool and Discoverer tool, and we started few POCs in Pakistan, and I started working on data warehousing. At that time, people didn't even know fact primary keys goes into dimension, or dimension primary key goes into fact table. I'm talking about that era. So at that time, someone we were discussing, I said, hey, one day I will work with Bill. So I was just sharing this story with, with my wife. It's 20 years back, right? And here we are now, right?
Here we are now.
Here we are. Okay, so now let's jump on to our this textual ETL thing. And we all know you are the father of data warehousing, and you have been advocate of this data warehouse which ultimately have structured data, and structured data is nothing more than which is coming in columns and rows from an OLTP application, which is, we all know what OLT application is, where you know what is inside because you are the one who is entering data and what is coming out of it, right, in a particular format. uh, and as we discussed, like around 15 years back, I think you started this text analytics. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that is where your text ETL start coming in, right? So tell us about
Actually,
this a little bit more. Then I will go into
surely.
from the product angle.
It was actually 22 years ago that I started. So I've been working on this a quarter of my lifetime. So I ask myself the question, why don't organizations use text in decision making? Because they ought to be. And the first answer was, well, maybe there's nothing interesting in text. And that is not true at all. There's actually a tremendous amount of information that's wrapped up in the form of text. Then the next thing we did was look at what the academic world was building at the time, something called NLP, because when you look up text, that's what you get. This is the way to do it. And so we started trying NLP, and we quickly found out that NLP is good for analyzing text, but it's not a commercially viable product. It was never designed to be used as a commercial product. So we set out on our own. I say we, I have a couple of programmers helping me do this. We set out on our own to find out how do you go about analyzing text. And it was a long, hard journey because everything we did was trial and error, and we made many errors along the way. Uh, Fortunately, we did find ways to start to analyze text. Now, one of the first things that we found is uh, text is very, very different from structured data. If you try to use the tools and methods that you learned when working with structured data, you don't find them in text. They're not there. And so that's the first thing that we found. The second thing we found along the way is when you're dealing with text, you must deal with context as well. That text without context is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. And so it's not a matter just of looking for text. Looking for context is the most difficult part. Having done this for 22 years of my life, I can tell you 90% of the difficulty in dealing with text is context. Text has its own things that it has to be dealt with, but finding and context is different. You see, in the structured world, we're given context. You're given a field name, a key name, a database name. You're given a record name, and that's context. That tells you what's there. When you go to text, there's none of that that's there. And so when you go to text, you have to have context, but it has to be inferred. You have to somehow know how, when you read the text, what is the context as well. So now, one of the major difficulties, one of the major differences between the structured world and the textual world is the fact that in the structured world, you have things called data models. And a data model in the structured world tells you a lot of information about the data that you're working with. When you go to text, you have something similar to a data model, but it's fundamentally different. It's something called a taxonomy or an ontology. And the and so from a standpoint, is a taxonomy the same thing as a data model? No, it's not the same thing at all, but it plays the same role because you need the taxonomies in order to make sense of and to infer the context of what the text actually is. So when you get into I'll tell you what I felt like. When I first got into the world of text, I felt like a fish that was flopping on the bank of a stream because I had been used to water and I'd been used to the things that I learned. And when I got into the world of text, they weren't there. And I was very frustrated because I kept looking for them and they weren't there. So anyway, it took myself and the people that I work with a long time to figure out how to make a commercial product that can handle text. Uh, if you take a look at natural language processing today and the things that have come from natural language processing, they are complex, they're expensive, and they are difficult to manage. Textual ETL is the exact opposite. Textual ETL is simple to use, it's inexpensive, and we make it so that even a person that's a beginner can use it in an intelligent fashion. Um, So the difference then between NLP and textual ETL is the difference between um, night and day. That textual ETL is a product that is designed for commercial usage of managing text and the other technology NLP is not. Now, in today's world, you find a lot of people talking about Chat GPT and generative AI. And
Yep.
it's kind of interesting. I was just reading the other day. I don't know if people know this, but ChatGPT was never designed to serve the commercial world. It was designed as a an experiment to open up a new opportunity, and in fact, it does open up new opportunity. But in terms of solving business problems, ChatGPT never aimed, was never, at least in the beginning, at solving business problems, and textual ETL does. With ChatGPT, going from your text to a database that can be analyzed. We haven't found anybody in the world, and we talk to a lot of people around the world. We haven't found anybody in the world that has done that yet. Maybe it can be done. Maybe we just haven't figured out how to do it. But in the meantime, you have textual ETL that indeed can do it. Now, what textual ETL does is textual ETL,
My audience really can understand what textual ETL is, right? Because I
okay,
want to bring up this point where you said textual ETL is versus NLP. This is very
right.
important. That's what you said, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Right. And
And
that's
when we
right.
go into Gen AI, you are absolutely right that there are no business, it was not meant to solve business problems because
Yep.
its model was trained on a very generic content, and they
Yep.
have used NLP behind it. And when we talk about NLP, it means whenever data comes in, NLP converts it, make it some, dig out the relevant context of the trained data, which is a generic data, and then give an output. That's how
Yep.
NLP works. It's a very generic one. And you
Yep.
are also correct that there hasn't been any formal business use, successful business use with around the globe. Throw structured data into LLM and wanted to take out relevant, accurate data. I said, go and do it. They could not do it. So, and you are absolutely right. It was not meant for accurate data. So now that is on NLP, which I have been
Yep.
telling people. And as you mentioned, taxonomies and ontologies are the key. So for
Yep.
me, I've been keep telling them that yes, there might be a possibility if you end up using taxonomies and ontologies with respect to the domain. If it is finance, you have to come up with the taxonomies and ontologies for finance or sales or procurement or audit. Then it may work. Now
Yep.
that is how this whole thing works. That is where your textual ETL comes. Now as an essay, I will ask this question. When you say textual ETL is a competitor or a to-go technology versus NLP, which is versus Gen AI. Are you saying that if you take this textual ETL, you don't need LLM, Gen AI LLM itself, or you want to extract data from textual ETL and throw into LLM? What you're saying?
First off, that's a very good question. Let me answer your question indirectly. Let me give you an analogy. Many years ago, IBM ran transaction processing systems on the mainframe.
Yeah.
And at that time, the personal computer with Microsoft came into the world. Uh, Microsoft did not directly have an influence on what the mainframe was doing. Microsoft Personal Computer did not affect the way transaction processing was done. What it did was it opened up the world of computing to organizations and people. Because once upon a time, the only way you got on a computer is if you had an IT person working on the mainframe. So indirectly, by opening the world up to a different audience, um, Microsoft did tremendous improvements for efficiency and all kinds of good things happened when Microsoft did what they did. But they did not have a direct effect on they had an indirect effect. Oh, do they have a big indirect effect on IBM? But they did not have a direct effect on IBM. I think that ChatGPT is going to do the same sort of thing in our industry. I think that ChatGPT is going to open up the door to lots of people to do some interesting things. And I think some of those things ultimately will result in business value. But in terms of directly affecting business value in the corporation today, uh, I really haven't seen anything from generative AI and ChatGPT that does that. Now, and so 10 years from now, we can ask the question, did ChatGPT open up doors? Yes. Did it allow people to use their creativity to solve business problems? Maybe. But ChatGPT has opened up a whole new world, but that world does not necessarily relate to business value. Textual ETL, on the other hand, is aimed directly at business value coming from text. And so so I hope I've answered your question. Uh, for one thing, ChatGPT is still in its very young days. You have to give a technology a certain amount of time before you can really truly tell what's going to happen to it. So there may yet come some business value from ChatGPT, but um, it was never designed to be a tool for business value. On the other hand, from the very first day that textual ETL was conceived, it was always designed to be a tool for business value. That is correct. And let me tell you why we made the conscious decision to do that many years ago. If you take a look at analysis, how do corporations do analysis? They do it through dashboards, they do it through knowledge graphs, they do it through Excel spreadsheets. That's how corporations look at and do their analytics.
Hmm.
So if you want to allow corporations to do analytics, as far as we can tell, you've got to convert it into a structured format. And because if you don't convert it into a structured format, you can't use the tools, the wonderful tools that already exist today. And so that's a choice. Now, there's another thing that happens when you convert text into a structured format. And that is that when the text is in the form of text, it has to be read by a human. And a human being, I don't care how smart you are, a human being can only read and digest a limited amount of text. Whereas a computer can read, once it's in the form of a database, a computer can read and digest effectively unlimited amounts of data. So there are really two reasons then for going to a structured format. Number one, so that we can do analytics, and number two, because we can handle an unlimited amount of data.
Okay, so I think let's dissect this little bit further. So when we say textual ETL converts text, which is a part of unstructured, into structured format, are we saying structured format in a way that I have a table, customer table, your text ETL will extract customer information from text and load into the existing data model? Or you are saying that you will dig out the metadata in structured format? That is where the clarity is a little bit required.
Okay, let me And I'm going to tell you right now, I get asked this question frequently, and the answer is a difficult answer. So I'm going to try my best to give you the best answer that I can. Yes, textual ETL reads text and puts text into a structured database. The structured database is fixed format. You only get it in one format. However, within the data that you get, you can then identify and create many, many different relationships and patterns of data. So we recognize that customers have a product they buy. Customers that there's all kinds of relationships that are important that you need to look at when it comes to text. There's no question about that. But if you in years past in the world of structured systems, we tried to design our tables and structured systems according to these patterns. And we ended up with database design after database design, and the world went crazy having all of these different databases. And so we decided that we didn't want to go crazy. So we decided that we had to have a fixed format, but we also recognized that we had to have a way to take the data that's in that fixed format and turn it and recognize and find those relationships that are important with the data. And I have to tell you, Mustafa, it's it's one thing for me to talk about this. It's another thing for me to demonstrate it. Once you see it in action, you say, now I see how that works. But me sitting here talking about it without showing is difficult to do.
No, I absolutely got your point, Bill. So what we are saying is when you say fixed model is, I'm sure you must be having that fixed model based on the domain. Oil and gas
Yes.
will have its own model, telco will have its own model, and banking will have its own model. Whatever text you will throw into it, it will convert and take out the context and put it over there. That okay.
Just for your information, we do have our taxonomies and ontologies divided by different industry types. Right now, the industry types that we service are airlines, banking, insurance, medical, pharmacy, real estate, restaurants, telecommunications, oil and gas, and railway. Now, there are other industries that are out there, but that list covers a great deal of the people who would be interested in doing this.
Okay, awesome. So now I understand how textual ETL whole works. And as you mentioned that once you show me, that will make more sense for the viewers.
It's 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 like a smorgasbord meal. It's got a little bit of one thing, a little bit of another thing, a little bit of another. And the reason we have that is we took a long time to do this, but it was done by trial and error. And we were only interested in what works. We didn't care where it came from, or we said, does it do what we want it to do? And as a consequence, it defies classification.
Or how we install it in our organization.
Okay, okay. It can be either installed on cloud or on premise. Some organizations have to have it on premise. Typically, healthcare and military, if they're going to use it, they have to have it in their own shop. Everybody else installs it on the cloud. We really, really like to install it on the cloud. We don't care which cloud you're on. We can install it on any cloud. The one thing I would like to bring up is, and we've run into this already in several places, the cloud in the many cases has to be on the home country of the organization that's using it. We were dealing with China, and they asked us, could we run it? And we said, sure. And then we found out that China and Canada and other people cannot send data out of their country in order to be processed. So that's pretty easy to take care of. But the cloud we can run on, as far as we know, anybody's cloud. and we can run on the cloud in the country where it belongs. You have data that needs to be de-identified. The data that needs to be de-identified has to be de-identified on premise in your environment. And so if you have data that needs to be de-identified, then you do have to install our de-identification component in your environment. But a lot of people don't care about the data to be de-identified. So that's the. However, I don't see that there's any way around that. So the main component, textual ETL itself, does not require the installation of anything in your environment.
Let me also ask about this uh, uh, privacy
Right,
classification, not classification, what do you call it? Confidentiality, right? Because in unstructured data, all these Word documents, emails, PDFs has confidential data. The biggest
right.
challenge I have faced in Gen AI solution in unstructured and all other unstructured solution is segregation of ownership of data is very challenging because confidential data is sitting somewhere there. Either if it is my documents, my department, I have to create a separate repository. It's your department's separate repository. It cannot be one repository. What textual ETL help will is there anything you can manage over there?
Um, First off, we don't get into it, but what we can do is we send the data back to the person that sent it to us, so that if you have one organization sending us data, we will process it and send the results back to them. If you have another organization processing data, we will process the data and send their results. But the first site won't ever see the second side.
Our today's session was all about how textual ETL conceptually work. What is
Yes.
what is the involvement of NLP and all those things which we clearly understand. And I feel then we need another session on a demo. And I uh, this session was very productive. At least I could really could understand what textual ETL is. And the takeaway from this session is textual ETL is something solving problem which NLP cannot solve. And NLP is a complete process, right? And your textual ETL tool come with taxonomies and ontologies with the relevant industry, and that is where you can help it out. Okay, okay, awesome. Thank you, Bill. It was really productive session, and it's always pleasure to talk to you. And anything you would like to say in the end of your session?
Well, I briefly, this isn't going to happen, but I briefly thought about if I was going to China, I ought to go by Malaysia as well. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen this trip. But I thought about it.
Try to make it. Maybe while coming back from China, you can drop by. It will be our
Okay,
honor to host you.
okay. Well, thank you, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah. Take care. Take care, Bill. Thank you. Have a
Okay.
nice
Bye
rest of.
bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Okay. Thank you so much for joining, guys. And we have met with each other a lot of time, but just for our audience, this is a team from DataVox, and they are the ones who has invented this amazing technology which is called as textual ETL, where none other than father of data warehousing, Bill Inmon, has worked years and years, couple of decades. He was mentioning around 22 years he has spent his precious time on discovering or creating this technology, right? That is where what we are saying here, that unstructured chart, this technology will dig out context and relevant information from unstructured chart into a fixed format. And when we say fixed format, every organization, every domain is different. Telco is different, banking is different, oil and gas is different. So when you throw the text into that tool, it will dig out a static data model, a transactional kind of data out of it, along with the matter, all those things. So we have Dave here, we have Roger here, and we have Catherine here. So, guys, can you guys just take 30 odd seconds, just quickly introduce yourself before we jump into demo?
Sure, I'll handle MC duties. First of all, Mustafa, thanks for having us. Second of all, we like to think of DataVox as the oldest one-year-old company on the planet. It's been 30 years in the making, courtesy of Bill Inman, as you know. Most people probably in your audience know who he is. If you don't, please Google him, Bill Inman, father of DataVox. He and I met several years ago, and hit it off very well. And we decided to take this company to a commercialized version. It formerly was a service, and now it's a full SaaS product, which you're going to see today. With me today, I have Dave Rapine. He's a co-founder as well. He's our CTO, and he's the mastermind behind all of the technology that supports Bill's general theories. We also have Catherine Shute. She is responsible for security, privacy, governance, and she does a lot of customer interaction and onboarding things as well. So that's the group today. With that, I'm going to give it over to Dave, who's going to take you through it, and feel free to fire away on questions as we go through it. We'd appreciate that.
Awesome.
So the software's purpose is to take unstructured data and structure it. But it
Dave, you
is
might want to bring it up a little bit. If anyone's like me, it's a little small on
is
the
that
Yeah,
better?
it is
thing.
little small as well. Yeah, yeah.
Is
Thank
that
you.
okay there?
Yeah.
Looks good,
Yeah,
Is
thank
it
that's
you.
good.
bigger?
Yep, no good.
Okay. So the purpose here is to take unstructured data and then be able to work with it as structured data. Um, and let me find some, sorry about this. Moving documents around always helps.
Yeah, so I'll keep throwing a few questions, right? So we are talking about
Sure.
a thick client over here, right?
We are right now. We do have two options. We have a SaaS model which is completely run currently on Azure,
Okay.
and it allows us to that it can be used purely on a web-based environment. We do have a client, a desktop client that would allow you to get more information from your files. For security reasons, there's certain information you cannot get from files that you bring in from remote, for instance, where those files are located. But from
Mhm.
a thin client, you could, and that would allow for classifications of documents.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So it's a SaaS product. You can deploy anywhere, any region. It's not a problem, right?
That is correct.
Awesome.
And the processing, mattering which options you choose and how you'd like it set up, the processing can be done locally. And we even have the ability to have all the data stored locally so it never leaves your site.
Okay.
For a lot of different industries, that is imperative, especially with different legal situations.
Yeah, I was about to ask that once this tool runs, where the processing happens. So processing happens at the base location where data is sitting over there, right?
It can happen in a SaaS model. It's going to happen on a out on the cloud in Azure. But that could be in your Azure area. It could be however we need to however that needs to be set up based on relatively the purpose of the data and the needs of the company.
Okay.
But the processing in that case, if you're using it as a SaaS model, processing will be done on the cloud,
Hmm.
um, in Azure, or if you're doing with the local client, the processing can be done on the in your environment behind your own firewalls, so they can be local processing if
Okay.
that needs to be done.
So
But
you,
it
And
does
as a
require
rule, we don't
local.
retain the data. Sorry,
yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
We don't keep the data as a rule. We send it to the data warehouse or data repository of your designation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we jump into it, is there a plan to get onto Azure Marketplace?
We are working on that. It has not been completed yet, but we are working on having a module on or a platform on Azure Marketplace.
Okay,
So in
awesome.
that case, it would be consumable by a department level, an
Yes.
individual, all the way up to enterprise. And it
Yes.
would be also, as you know, obviously, if you know about the marketplace, it would be available to the reseller marketplace to sell into their Microsoft clients and large agreements and used and consumed to burn Microsoft budget expended by behalf of their end users as well.
Correct.
So it's
Correct.
a great goal of ours. We expect that within the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, so my apologies,
And
Dave.
by
We
the way, same with AWS as well.
okay,
Sorry,
same here.
Mustafa, but we're
Okay,
gonna be in both platforms or environments.
okay, awesome. Okay, I think we can start now.
All right. So um, things are run in batches. That's because when you have a set of documents, documents should have a similar reason. Uh, the purpose of this is to contextualize your documents, thus contextual ETL. That could be for a purpose of classification, or it could actually be for a purpose of sentiment analysis uh, and contextualization. So what you need is what is called a nexus. The nexus is specified to a certain industry or a certain purpose within your company. You don't need to have a general nexus for when you're dealing with certain types of banking documents, certain types of medical documents, or certain types of oil and gas documents. So
Dave,
today
if
what
I
we're
might
going to do
jump
is a
in.
sure.
Oh, I just wanted to jump in and take it a notch higher just because it's all the news. So everyone's familiar with large language models, and those have hallucinations. It's because they've got trillions of data points, right? So if you use that for a corporation, you're going to get a lot of mishits. So evolved from that came the SLM, the small language model, which refines it further, and now the contextual language model, which is kind of in, but we take it even more niche with this concept of a nexus. So you could literally be an airline, then you'd be American Airlines, then you'd be the marketing department of American Airlines, and then you could be the marketing department in Des Moines, whatever. We can get that refined so that when we're receiving data in, it's filtered through the taxonomy, the nexus, to the specifications that are as tight or as wide as you choose, giving you the best result. So it actually acts as a filter against large language models. Some people are using it that way, right, to eliminate hallucinations and
Mm.
take their large language searches and refine it to their better needs. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
So I have a related question. Thanks for bringing this up, Raja. I think this is good,
Yep.
going good into interactive session, right? So I was about to ask that how do you guys compare yourself with traditional LLM or RAG or NLP process? Are you guys a competition of that? You get rid of that and this works? How you guys, because everybody is jumping on Gen AI, Chat GPT, those things. So how do you guys compare your product with that?
I'm going to answer the business answer, and Dave will give you the technical. Okay, that's how we do this. Laurel and Hardy here. The business answer is we recognize that the world is all about LLM, Gen AI, machine learning. Every budget, every RFP has that as a mandate, right? Behind our scenes, we're using Gen AI, and we can't get into the specifics, but we use artificial intelligence primarily to give us scale and variability. Okay, that's part of the mix behind the scenes. But what we're doing is taking that down to a refined level in a refined infrastructure model that allows us to be hyper fast. And Dave will show you that. So if you want to draw contrast to LLM and natural language NLP and some of these other approaches, in what we've seen in demos and competitive analysis, they're extremely slow by a factor of 100 to 500x slower. And I'll let you talk to that, but I wanted to kind of frame that for you.
Okay.
So when you're looking at data, you're going to be well, to answer the question on the technical side, we use we need less processing power, less resources to do a much more detailed job. And our purpose is a business purpose. It is to create data that can be used and consumed by the rest of your company. The purpose of an LLM is to create more text.
Yeah, so I say, so another relevant question is when you say you work Gen AI at backend, because traditionally LLM, what we know is a bit the cost, major cost goes towards the tokens. Every content goes in, token is consumed, every content you extract, token is out. So major showstopper for LLM for me is, which I've seen in many places, that as many chat you do, as expensive it's become. So it's based on the chat you do. Is that the same over here, or that token concept is gone over here in this tool?
We look at pages of data.
Pages of data.
Now,
Okay.
And now pages can mean a lot of different things, but it's consider it a page. So if you have a Word document and it has 10 pages, those are 10 pages of data within that same document, but it'd be 10 pages of data. If you're dealing with Yelp reviews, they usually come in a large CSV file. And
Mm-hmm.
so each review is a page of data into itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be considered a page of each one of those would be considered a page of data.
And you process that page, but you don't charge customer each page. It's just processing, right?
We charge it. We have a lot of different ways of making sure that the cost matches the need and the cost matches the benefit. We
And I'll
are
jump in, Dave. Yeah, because
please.
that's a great point. So we're value based naturally, Mustafa, but if you want to break it down into just an empirical formula, it's per page, per row, as the metric, starting as low as 1,000 pages up to 1 billion. We actually have medical institutions, research companies that want to look at 1 billion pages. A typical engagement would be a look back for a large enterprise. Think of a huge insurance company. They want to look back maybe 3 to 5 years in unstructured data. And for example, a real situation, we have one with 53 terabytes of look back data they want to see. But then there's an ongoing subscription in our model. So it's a project up front and a subscription fee over time. And that's for newly formed unstructured data. So in the case of an insurance company, in their case, they have 100,000 new pages per day of documentation that they want processed. What's great about that business is that they keep up to date with their unstructured data on an ongoing basis. So once they've engaged, they've got their benchmark look back. Now they've got an everyday update that's occurring so that everything is current. And they find that very attractive, not only from a financial standpoint when
Mm-hmm.
compared to human labor to do it, but it's also great for their governance, to Catherine's point, keeping up with all the governance requirements and documentation being contemporary. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
So it's a one-time process. So what takeaway for me is in LLM where you every time go and read, you pay every time. Here you process one time, throw into a table somewhere, and then that's it. That cost is one time done. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
It's the right way
awesome.
to look at it. Yeah. Now it changes every day and data changes every day and the nexus may change. As
Mhm.
Gen X grows to Gen Z, they use different words for sentiment. What we used to say was rad is now Riz, right? So you have to keep up with those changes over time, but that's our problem, right? So
Mhm.
we don't make that a customer problem, but those are some of the dynamics behind the scenes.
Awesome, awesome. I'm absolutely with you guys. I hope my audience are that we are very much into it, that we are not creating a traditional Gen AI solution. It's something comparative to that for me is regular, very expensive solution. Not a lot of ROIs are matching nowadays, and people are just doing POCs, and then the cost goes up, and they have no idea, right? Here, you can very well plan your cost. You have to process 100,000 files. One time, you already know the cost. After that, it goes into your traditional new 4G or Power BI or Tableau, whatever you want to do it.
And
Correct?
you analyze it to death. But that's exactly right. We want to be simple, efficient. We leave the difficult stuff to us, not to the customer. And Gen AI in our case is simply a lever that we use for scaling very quickly. It came at the right time, right? It's matching market demand with what we had as an IP previously. But yeah, our whole goal is if you're going to map it on an XY axis, on one axis, it's simplicity, meaning cost, and on the other axis, it's value. And it goes low and deep across that matrix.
Yeah, as we are just discussing this again, pre-sale stuff, can I also ask because heard Bill saying that this technology is patented by you guys. Can you put some light onto it, Roger, how it is patent or I heard wrongly?
No, it's patented as a user. Wait, provisional, Dave, is that what they're calling it?
It's
Provisional now. We filed it, but the patent office is so backed up. Catherine can probably talk to this. I don't want to put her on the spot, but it's so backed. You get a provisional until you get the actual, and that's based on oh, what is the term? use and methods or something along those lines. Catherine, do you
Yeah,
know those correct
it's
terms?
just called patent pending, and it'll come down to, yeah, if and when the patent office gets around to it, but you do have a timestamp from what I understand, same as a trademark, from
Hmm.
when you actually file it to say these guys were first. For example, if somebody else comes along with the tech, no, sorry, Datavox.ai, Datavox here, us, you're first. You others get to get in line, if at all.
No, this
Right.
brings a very exciting point. When you say patent right, this is a very big selling point. I would say that if you patent this technology, then nobody else can do it, right? So are
They
we
can't do it the same way.
same?
Right.
I'd be
Yeah.
cautious, right?
Yes.
People are going to find different ways to get to a similar result. I
Mhm.
think we'd be naive if we said that was not possible, but we happen to
Right.
think we're the most efficient mechanism. Dave can probably back that up with technical stuff, but that's how I look at it from a business standpoint.
Okay. Okay. I think we are good. High level, I've asked security, all those things. I will go later. Dave, I think we leave the floor for you for the demo now.
All right. So when you start looking at the data, or sorry, when you start looking at the interface, the for the SaaS model, everything is run in batches because all your documents that you're going to be processing should be of a similar type. So first and foremost, you need to create a data set name. So this one will be properly named. These are going to be, we're going to deal in the medical world right now. And let me show you what some of the medical documents would look like. We'll just take 13 is always a lucky number. So we'll grab the 13th person here. So this was a medical record. These are synthetic, so this is not going to go past any issues. But this is a similar type of thing. So it has a location. It is a was done in 2021. You have a standard information that would come from a medical record. So
And that's a
that's
patient and a doctor and a one-time visit. And then
that's
it would
it.
be extended over multiple visits, right? Just
Right.
like in real life.
Right. So sorry about that. All right. Let me put that back up. All right, here we go. Next, we will go and take some of these documents. We could take this for thousands of documents. They can come from different areas, but we'll just take a series of documents. And once you have the name in there, oh, sorry, helps if put that in. And then we can just take these documents and drag them right into here to the browse area. It grabs the documents. It's loading all of those. There were 14 that I grabbed. It could be 14,000 documents. It doesn't matter. It just takes some time to upload them to the system, just like you would
They're
with a Google
done.
Docs or with your OneDrive. Then you start processing it. Once you start processing, this all runs behind the scenes, is going through each of the documents, and the documents can be of any type. They can be, well, relatively any type. They can be text documents. What we're doing with this is text. We're looking for text, but they can be text documents, CSVs, Excel, PDFs. Yes, we handle PDFs and we handle them very fast. Word documents, email messages.
Voice
We've
transcripts.
Yeah, so any type of transcripts, we can take that and then we will work through that. And what will happen is that these are done, of course, already. It was just 14 of them. And we will look at what this does, and then we'll look at the results that you use to import into your data warehouse or into Tableau or your graph
Neo4j
database.
or whomever.
Here, here's that patient 13. It took about a half a second total to ingest and process that document.
And process means contextualize, Mustafa. So in the case of customer sentiment, it would contextualize it in the sense of what did that sentiment mean? Does rad mean good? Rad mean bad? Does hot mean food or hot mean waitress? Right? It's those types of things. Sorry, that may be off color, but it's appropriate for the comparison. So it's sorting all that out and putting it into context for you.
So
So
Dave, we are saying this data model is one table, right? So all files we have thrown into it with respect to medical taxonomy? Because I can see you have the taxonomy of medical attached.
Yes.
So your
So,
product comes with the taxonomy, and can I, okay, let me throw this question as well. Can I attach external taxonomies here as well?
yes, you can.
Like
You
WAN
can.
technology and XYZ technology, they have all
You
have their
can, and
own.
you can, and there's the ability to modify the taxonomy, the nexus. So a nexus is a contextualization of multiple taxonomies.
Okay.
It's that
So it
drill
is
down
a,
I talked about to
yeah, it's
refine
a
it.
nexus of multiple things, and it has multiple layers to that nexus, as we'll show you in a second. So in this case, we were able to pull out all kinds of medical, or these were all medicines that were given. So I can't pronounce most of these, but I know that they take lisinopril 10 milligram oral tablet. And you say, well, that's easy because that would have been a checkbox or that was just in the medicine area. But if you look, by the way, we know that this
Checks.
person had sinusitis, they had COVID, they had a fever, a cough, they had a fracture of the clavicle, they had loss of taste. They are a married, active smoker. They are heterosexual. They're with the insurance company Aetna. And notice you put your mouse over it, it says the insurer was Aetna. But that was down here. If you notice down here, it was in the plan. Yes, they're taking that in the medications, but that's also in the plan, and it will find your text, these types of things anywhere in your text document. So if someone puts them in the wrong place, we still find that. And you say, well, what kind of data do we actually get? But this CSV, it'll take a second. I just have to, there it goes.
And while Dave's doing this, a single patient doesn't matter to anybody other than the patient and the doctor. But a million patients, when structuralized and contextualized, becomes hugely powerful, Mustafa, in the sense that you can now analyze it across a statistically significant sample size, or not even sample size, a true
Yeah, so
size.
I can see you have dig out the transactional data, which is very structured from the unstructured text. Am I saying
Mhm.
the right thing?
That is correct. We are able to take the textual data that is in the unstructured format, jump it right over semi-structured into a structured format to be consumed or used by your graphical interfaces, by your decision support systems, by your
Mm.
dashboards.
Okay.
That's
Mm.
and using basket analysis, we know all of these are from patient 10, and we know what sentence each of these were set in, what location in the file these were put in. We
Got
know
it.
what taxonomy they come from.
You bring in the metadata as well,
We
right?
do. So and if this was supposed to be sentiment analysis, we can tell you if someone said something was good or bad, which look, you can get that from a million places. But we
Yeah.
can also tell you if someone said, well, that was not bad. Well, not bad is a positive thing. It's not bad. It's not as good as good, but it's not bad. It's still a positive sentiment, but not a strong positive sentiment. And we can separate that up to 7 layers of sentimental analysis inside of here. But in this case, for medicine, there's no sentiment with medicine, it's simple science. So I need to know what the race, I'm looking for all the female white COVID patients who had bronchitis. What drugs were they on? And down
Got
here, we
it.
can find out all of the drugs that, well, in this case, she had none. But as you go through, we can find out that um, these would be the people who had these types of drugs. And this was a Blue Cross and Blue Shield heterosexual alcoholic smoker, active
Okay.
smoker.
Okay. Got it. Two questions. Once you mentioned that this can also be, we can also throw that into Neo4j. But Neo4j, that is where we have to create the relationships. How we find out the relationships?
So in here, you do have some relationships. The relationships are based on the source documents. And if this is a CSV, if these were Yelp reviews, we also know what row these came from. So therefore, you have the ability to source them into a single basket, but
Okay.
also you have the word or classification or different things that you're looking for. Within each word, it comes under a classification and an area within a nexus. There's 4 layers of classification for each term. It's because one person may say a they may say a term one way, another person will say a term the other way, but it comes back to we're looking for these procedures. We're looking for these body categories or this type of symptom.
Okay, okay.
And Neo4j can do that. Show me all the people who had a symptom of this or this type of symptom and were this race and this sex.
Hmm. So maybe we missed this part. Maybe we can have. I don't want to put on a spot that to show this into New4j how it connects. If it
So
can,
you're talking about roadmap, Mustafa, just so you
yeah.
know. This is all stuff Dave and I and the team are working on from
Hmm.
both a sales and business side and a technology side.
Hmm.
And that's in process. So we're going to have examples specifically, and Catherine's heading this up on ThoughtSpot. If you're familiar with them, they're kind of the most cutting edge BI tool out there. They use natural language to
Hmm.
do ad hoc queries, which is awesome. And then Neo4j, I think you're personally familiar with them. They're kind of the leader in the knowledge graph space. We're also using another company called Otipa, which is like a Neo4j, just they have different tweaks to how they do it. So but
Yeah.
these are all going to be in the can and part of our demo going forward. And
Okay.
it's just going to take a little time to get them all processed.
Yeah, yeah. Because why I'm asking is, as a customer, I want to see end-to-end solution. Yes, you have converted it, but I feel that there's another
You need
effort
the pick.
required. Yes, and if it,
You've got the steak, now you need the sizzle, right? That's an American term.
yeah.
But that's true because what we do isn't sexy. What we do is really powerful, but it doesn't sell. It is a sexy thing. You put it off to Neo with Dave's quick example. If it's in Neo, you can see it instantly, like, oh, I could do something with that. Or in ThoughtSpot, doing ad hoc analysis, you immediately know what's going on. And if you see where it starts, which Dave can show, the raw text, you know how impossible that would be to do as humans. And a funny thing, Mustafa, just so you know, when we built our pricing model, which is in its infancy and we're beating it up a little bit, Dave and I thought it would be fun since we're going by pages, right? And we go from 1,000 to 1 billion pages plus to show what the human equivalency was on the other side. Because people are going to like, why would I spend $1 million doing textual ETL with Datavox? Well, you can't do it any other way. One, so it's impossible. But your alternative is human labor. So we thought, okay, let's analyze how many humans it would take to do 1 million pages of text. And we came up with a formula that we believe would stand up to any scrutiny that shows people exactly how hard it is to do. Then with humans, of course, you have inherent errors and problems. Whereas we're at, what are we saying, 99, 97 to 100% accuracy in terms of the analysis and the context. So you're getting highly accurate, highly fast, highly economical vis-a-vis humans. And we're willing to show that to anyone who wants to see it because people the price. Why would I pay that much for this or not? They may or may not ask a price question, and we can demonstrate that. So it's powerful.
Yeah,
What I,
as you
yeah. Oh,
mentioned, sorry, Catherine, I'm just
okay,
throwing more relevant
please,
question with that
please.
because Roger mentioned you're doing a benchmarking with textual versus human, right? Effort. Can you also put an effort
Kind of
where,
as a joke, but to make a point,
yeah,
right?
to make a point, right? So can you also have a comparison with LLM as well, Chat GPT, because
Boy,
you can throw data into LLM as well, and you can have a context, but we know it's not accurate. But
I think that's a good idea, and I think I'm going to toss that to Dave. Dave, can you get that whipped up over the
So
weekend?
I've been doing LLM. I've been working with LLMs and gender pre-trained transformers since they came out in 22. I've had presentations on 4 continents with these, and I've led a whole series of workshops and different groups. And the problem with LLMs is not just the hallucinations, but that it's wrong more often than it's not. And not more often though, it's wrong 20, 30% of the time, and
yeah,
that doesn't work from a business standpoint.
absolutely.
This
Spend
isn't
more
working
time
for the
cleaning up the
client.
mess.
Right. And not just that, if you have something that people believe and they say, no, no, this is right, it's you're wrong in your belief that it's right. And
I'm absolutely agree with you. I'm on the same page actually, and I've been trying to explain people this thing. But as you have come up with this technology, I think it will be very ideal for anyone to have a comparison. Cost is one parameter. The second parameter is accuracy as well. If you can come up with that, that will be really helpful.
And we
And
can
we
export
agree.
this as a CSV. There's a lot more metadata when you export it as JSON, but we can
Hmm.
export each file as JSON or the whole group as JSON or as Parquet. There's a lot of different options that we
I was
have.
about to ask about, can we have our required format? Because the moment you put it into JSON or CSV, when you read it, you have to deserialize again. More
You
power.
do,
If you have a per K, you don't have to deserialize.
correct?
So we can in every format, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
already
down the
it already
lower
has
left.
exports. And yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay.
If you
So
see the dataset buttons.
Right over here, it's CSV, JSON, Parquet, and then we. This is just a sentiment, different type of analytics, correlation, class correlations, different ideas that we have in there. But sentiment doesn't make sense for medical, so
No.
there's
yeah,
no reason to do that. And um, there are class correlations where it's we're statisticians. That's what we do. What we've majored in many cases. And so understanding when someone has this issue, how often do they have this issue? Do they
hmm.
correlate in a positive, negative way? And is there a strong correlation coefficient? Correlation does not mean causation, but it definitely gives you something to look at.
Yeah, yeah. So Catherine, you wanted to say something. My apologies, I stopped you.
No, no, not at all. It's a great discussion. I'm looking at this as in my old days as a data architect, and as you talked about doing ELT, ETL. And I think about how long it would have taken for it to take a file that has, in the old days, you had to substring everything.
Yep.
Can't possibly do that here because every single string is different. So Dave, if he would have come to me as an architect, an ETL, and said, I can get you a staging file for your staging table, for your big data, whatever that is, in like that, I would have kissed the ground he walked on and that's really the power. I still may, but that's really the power of it is going now. You can now warehouse it. You can put an effective date. You can say, here's the files that came in tonight. Boom, 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 boom. Stage it. And if nothing else, be able to hold the history while, to your point, Mustafa, you nailed it, getting that BI solution back around it that says, this is great that I got all this raw stuff and I'm getting it off of text and I have a method to do it. Now, how do I make the dashboard? How do I make, like Roger said, the sizzle for the steak? But for the practitioner of it, I mean, I just went, wow, that's that is huge power because before I used to have to tell people I can't get into those files. I have no way to substring all that.
Yeah, so you have brought up a very good point when you say stage it, right?
Stage it.
In data
Yeah, he just staged it for you
yeah,
in
so
seconds.
so what we are saying is in data warehousing world, in analytical world, we have landing, we have staging, we have transformed. So
You
what
got it.
textual ETL is doing is to bring data from unstructured text into staging area. Now
Bam.
from there you have to transform it. So that piece is still there. That relates to my next question because Dave, when I see your CSV, there is some rows which are not relevant rows, right? Into one of the column, there was some other data, but there was a date over there. So when you are doing an ETL, you have to get rid of those junk rows as well. Correct me if I'm
And
wrong.
You would.
some of
Yeah.
the, you're exactly correct. So the CSV that was the default CSV for this particular customer, they wanted to see when the dates were put in, and they wanted to see some of the extra words.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that's the account that I'm using that they also have because the word patient, I don't need the word patient. That it's truly an irrelevant word when it comes to medical data.
Unless you're
But it was
talking about how long
important.
they waited in
Right.
the waiting room.
Exactly.
Right.
But they wanted to
As
know
an adjective.
did the
Hmm.
what they were looking for in some cases for this particular one, the officer was looking, do the doctors refer to the patients as patients? So they were there was a different piece to say whether or not we are using the correct terms for our customers.
mm, mm, mm.
So all I want to see is how many of our doctors say this. Now, for those, we can take those words out because they have a different classification than some of the other words.
So I
So if you're looking at a data warehouse and
hmm,
a data governance, you will have the marketing term, a legal term, and an accounting term, all dealing with the same type of data. It has the same term, but it means something completely different in legal, in marketing, and accounting. But with the nexus, I knew that this was an accounting nexus, this was a marketing nexus, this was a medical
correct.
nexus, and that allows us to separate our data marts.
So I
We
think
But it
can
also allows you to say, even within the same company, are we using groups of words differently to different audiences and different groups of people? And if so, from a business process, talking about governance for a second, Dave nailed it. How can we spin back to that and go, you're calling these people a patient and you guys are calling them customers, for example? I'm just making it up.
exactly.
And we need to fix that because we're not speaking the same language in the business. And we can prove it because your files came across with these words, blah, blah, blah. This other group of people in the same company, perhaps, have these words. We have a gap,
And it could be based just on geography, the
right?
South versus the East versus
Or
the
global,
West.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And
Okay.
then,
Global.
yeah, different languages. But
Kind of cool.
another example that's really worth looking at, Mustafa, and I'll names here out, okay? But hey, Mustafa, here's an example of a way we're using it with video and voice. There's a very large company we're working with now, and what they're asking us to do is taking, I don't know if you know this, but for every video that's filmed, like now, there is a transcription that
Yeah.
occurs of every word spoken. That is all text, okay? They're trying to monetize that. They're applying LLM to it now to try to summarize and tease out some meaning. And it's, in our opinion, not ideal. So, what we're suggesting to them is using our platform to structuralize it around sentiment in this case, so that you can understand what customers are saying, what they're asking for, what internal people are saying amongst themselves. It's a little bit big brother, a little HR weird, but it's also important. I'll tell you how this rolls up. Large bank does about 100,000 Zoom meetings per year. So on 100,000 meetings, a load of those are internal only, and a load of them are with customers. And if you can think about how much data is able to be analyzed and learned from, it becomes hugely powerful. And that's what Zoom's banking on, right? As a go-to-market strategy. So when you're at your large oil and gas company, you're probably going to get hit up by your Zoom rep to tell you how much you can learn from Zoom or Teams or whoever you use. But that's all coming, and that's we're kind of at the forefront of that, we think. So just for what it's worth.
I have one more technical question for you, Dave. See, when you showed this tool where we dragged and dropped, do you have APIs to automate all this stuff? Do you have a workflow, or you bring some other Airflow and something else to run your jobs? How you do that?
We do have APIs built for to run this from remote from different systems, but we also have a desktop, relatively thin client app, but it's a desktop app. It's an installed app for
Mm.
Windows PCs, not for Macs, not for Ubuntu, but for Windows PCs. But it allows you to process truly locally, and if you need to, you can use it's a series of peer networks to run through your do a first or initial run through your documents. But it can also, with that, the processing can be done locally. The data can be saved to a local database or through local files. And the third would be that you do get a lot more rich data by going from a desktop application because you actually have access to where those files are. And you don't have to have a person drag and drop. They can spider through your documents that you suggest. It's not that it's just going. We don't have thin clients that spider through your documents. We have thin clients that you dictate where they will spider, and what documents they're going to classify under this particular type of nexus.
Mm, so,
And I'll
so
jump in that
yeah,
we're showing the simplified version to make a point for a
yeah,
demo, right? But what
yeah.
Dave's talking about is industrial strength stuff for really enterprise level applications.
Yeah. I was referring to that. So once in your cloud, most of the people have their documents sitting to SharePoint or OneDrive XYZ, right? So
Hmm.
I'm sure you will allow external orchestration tools to hit to a source, throw into a your engine and dig out the export into a XY format that is all configurable, not hard coded in your tool. I can select where to pick which format to convert, correct?
That is correct. And which nexus to hit it against.
And which nexus, right? And all I can do in that ETL to XYZ, like Informatica, right?
Yeah,
Informatica, I take an example, Informatica, Talent, let me name few so it doesn't look like I'm biased, right? So all these tools can read and they can connect to your taxonomy that will be somewhere you mentioned and then export into a flat file. So are we saying only flat file I can throw into a database as well? SQL
no,
Server, Delta
SQL
Lake,
Server.
anywhere.
Of
Our base
course.
is the SQL Server, so we don't. Our export is flat files, JSON, Parquet, and well,
Hmm.
binary, whatever, and CSV. We have others that we can as well. There's just the easy
Hmm.
three. The But our base is to throw it into a SQL Server database.
Now, when you say throw your metadata DB as SQL Server or other than file, we can only export into SQL Server, you're saying?
What right now we can put it into any ODBC compliant database.
Ah, so any ODB. Okay, when you say SQL, it's not, you are saying RDBMS. You're not saying Microsoft SQL Server. You can,
No,
any RDBMS can be done.
right.
It
Right
can
now,
be,
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
And it can
that's right.
it be delta tables? Can it be snow tables? All those things can be Snowflake and delta. This Databricks. Anything is possible, right?
As long as those thin clients can reach those things, those databases, and they're set up, the answer is yes, we can push it out to those.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Mustafa, you're familiar with Neo4j. They're their own database, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we just dump into that natively and
Can.
off they
Okay.
go. Same with ThoughtSpot. They want us to use Snowflake. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we do,
Yeah.
right?
So okay, let me throw one more question. So this when the costing thingy, right? Yes, you process it by page and XYZ, right?
Yep.
Where is that cost module I can see as a customer? I throw 1,000 pages to you, you process. Do you have a dashboard somewhere shows me, hey, today you processed these number of pages and this is the cost of license and this is the cost of your processing because two things, right?
Yes.
So you have that dashboard built in your technology, is it?
It's not a
We
dashboard yet. It's literally a PowerPoint slide that takes you through the
we're,
layers.
we're
And
working through it.
we,
The dashboard is not live yet. No.
No, even if you throw into a CSV file, I'm fine now. At least I can show into a
yeah,
KPI
we
dashboard.
Yes.
have the tiers, and frankly, we're working through the pricing.
Hmm.
Um,
Why I throw this on this question, right? Because I see a lot of customers around the globe. Those have been hit by Gen AI high cost. So whenever they are going to new technology, the basic thing they are looking the cost. And not only cost, segregation of cost, right? Because I bring my 10 departments, they throw their files into it. I need to know out of the box how much I need to recover back from whom. That segregation I need.
and they come to you and say, okay, how much? Because I can get it for X over here and internals Y,
Correct.
and I want to make sure we get the best deal internally. What's the chargeback hit going to be? So that
Yes.
makes sense. And so, Dave, when we talk about roadmaps for the other customer that we're talking about, let's incorporate that into it. We've already talked about counting pages. We've talked about a dashboard that rolls up so that if usage is and
Yeah.
their
Right.
bill back, that's not
Yep.
going to be built into that because we recognize a situation like you where you're a utility within a huge company, you need chargeback capabilities that's
Yes.
trustworthy, right? It's
Yes.
very important. So we're going to build that into the overall commercial product. And so that's roadmap. But we've thought that through, and I think you bring a great point. That's how people live in corporate America, certainly.
Yeah. So one last question before we jump out, right? About access and privacy, not security. Security is there. How do you segregate privacy? My documents goes in, nobody else should see. Your document goes in, only you see. Actually, I kind of an answer that as well, but you can confirm me. The moment you throw into a CSV, you can come up with the metadata and you can throw into a relevant place. Is also a big selling point, right? Because in LLM world, you don't have a privacy concept. You throw everything into LLM, anybody hit a chart, they can see everything. So when
It's
they hitting the chart, that is where at a API level, you have to restrict the data. But the problem over there is you hit a LLM model or whatever repository, if there are 100 million rows and you only need 100 rows, it'll pick 100 million, filter
Yep,
at a output level and show you 100, but the cost, token cost is for 100 million. That's the
right.
biggest challenge I can see
That's
here,
right.
Half
right?
of which are bogus and crap.
Yes,
Yes.
90% is bogus, I can tell you, not
No,
half.
And the
okay. I was being
and the
generous.
other
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other half is that you've exposed that LLM to a bunch of data that it can spit out
So
into something else.
Yeah.
So you don't
true.
have the security
Yeah,
that
so I
of
can tell you
having your
people,
own platform.
yeah, yeah, people end up spinning multiple LLMs, because privacy is big.
Hmm.
If the audit data goes,
Huge.
you can't take a chance. So
Oh,
we end up,
Starbucks must love LLMs. Seriously. But
No.
Mustafa, I have to give you credit. You're giving us some really good marketing ideas. It's
yeah,
great
Yeah.
because it really helps us refine where we want to go and how to differentiate. Because if I'm a department owner and I have a budget and I have to go LLM route, I'm going to spend $1 million where 90% of
yes,
it's crap. Then I got to spend another 500 to refine it and more and more. Whereas with Datavox, you're going to know exactly what you spend. You're going to know you're going to get 90 plus accuracy as long as your taxonomies meet, your nexus meets what your goals are, right? And the
correct.
uniformity. So that's a great selling point that I hadn't thought of, frankly, as a consumer, which I think is really helpful for our marketing. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. It's a
And
solution architect Cap who is asking this question.
no, but you've got the
Uh,
business mind, right? And that's very helpful.
Thank you, guys.
I,
It was,
yep.
thanks, Dave. Pleasure. It was
Thank
a
you.
great session.
Always a
See you
pleasure.
guys later. Take
Thanks.
care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Mustafa. We'll catch you
thank you
later.
so much.
Bye bye.